Hey guys, so I just wanted to give you guys a quick update before you listen to this episode. So Jose and I decided to go live on Twitter Spaces, and more than halfway through the episode, my power cut out. And so we couldn't finish recording the whole episode. And you're here, Jose, around the 45th, 46 minute mark. Stop talking, and that's where the episode ended on Spaces. And so instead of re-recording or picking back up where we left off, we decided to leave it as is. So the audio levels may be a little bit wonky. I just wanted to be transparent with you guys and let you guys know what had happened. But without further ado, let's get straight into the episode.
Forward looking, laying it off. Gaston! Hat trick! Ariel sends it in off of Gressel. Made it to Elliott. Oh, the burst to call! Julian Carranza! A spectacular finish! Philadelphia doubles its lead!
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, instead of going on Riverside or Zoom or whatever, Jose, Nunez, and myself decided to do a live Twitter Spaces and give you guys that option. We haven't done one in a very long time. I think, actually, I don't even know. I was going to say the last time I think we did a Twitter Spaces was down when I was in Myrtle Beach, but I think you, me, and Kyle did that on Riverside, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, first Twitter Spaces of the 2024 season, and what a perfect time to do it, to talk about last night's Philadelphia Union Saprissa match, which ended 6-5 on aggregate. Did not expect that scoreline whatsoever, but like I mentioned, Jose Nunez is here. Jose, how you doing?
I'm doing okay now that we got this thing working. Of course, it's not easy or user intuitive to you do this on the computer side of things, but of course on mobile it works like a charm. So it's like completely backwards from what I expected. But in regards of how I'm actually doing, man, I'm still trying to get caught up. Being out so late last night, despite how much fun that game was, it's tough. But man, was it worth it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel bad. Like, I'll go ahead and put myself on blast here for everybody listening. I did not stay for the press conference. I did not stay for the player interviews. It's like, man, someone just take away my press credentials. How dare I not stay for that? But I have a reason, right? Work the next morning, and I'm surprised, in all honesty, that many fans showed up with rain in the forecast. I know it didn't rain that much, maybe a little bit of a light drizzle. All in all, great weather, and we saw a ton of Saprissa fans there, and we can go ahead and actually get into that right away if you want, Jose, before we actually talk about this game. I mean, I think that was probably one of the best crowds ever at Subaru Park, in my opinion, and that was not a full stadium whatsoever. But the Saprissa fans, man, they made a lot of noise. They were there, full support for their club.
Yeah, I admittedly missed the Club America matchup a few years back. Was it 21? 22?
Yeah, 21.
Can't remember when it was.
21.
Okay. I was not there for that, though. The images, watching it, unbelievable scenes with yellow smoke. And honestly, I guess maybe that was the earliest sign of what Lionel Messi coming to Subaru Park would look like in a way, right? And in terms of the amount of the opposing team's color that you could see throughout the stadium. But last night, man, that stadium was certainly not full. It wasn't empty, but the pocket of Ticos, which is a nickname for Costa Ricans, excuse me, was incredible. It was so cool to see them spread out and just hearing, or I should say reading, the many stories of, we had a group of like 8 behind us, and they were cheering the whole time and apologized if they felt they were being a little too loud. And we told them that we love it, and they continued. And it was just, listen, I'll just say this. I think that the Union need to find a way to get these folks who, at least the ones that are local, or within a stone throw away of Subaru Park, they need to find a way to bring them to the stadium and bring them to the river end, because as you saw, Todd, and you watched me go over to the away fan section, the videos I posted, it's an incredible atmosphere. And that was all of what is the away section? Like 5 rows, maybe 6. I don't even know, but it was, I don't know, dare I say, louder than the entire river end just in that tiny little section, or at least more lively in a way too. Granted, obviously the momentum of the game probably helped with that and everything that transpired. But listen, all in all, I was just so happy to see that many Costa Ricans across the entire Subaru Park.
Yeah, as was I. And even before the match, I mean, you saw the Saprissa fans marching in with their flags and everything. And it definitely did not feel like the Club America game from 2021. And I still have like images from that game stuck in my head because the whole stadium was yellow. And then after the game, you know, fans stormed the field. I mean, that was intense. And you and I were talking in the press box how, you know, we wish more MLS away fans would travel like this. It would create such a better environment for MLS games. And I've seen people on Twitter saying, well, you know, you can't compare CONCACAF games to MLS games. It's totally different. You know, one's a knockout competition, the other one's just a regular season game. And some people say, well, the only thing you can compare it to is the playoffs. And, you know, I get that for sure, but I don't want to compare MLS to leagues in Europe, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. It's like, you know, why can't fans come out and for 17 games, home fans, away fans, you know, it's 17 games in the regular season for the home fans. Why can't it be a rocking atmosphere every single game, just like those Saprissa fans brought? Why can't, like, there's no excuse in my opinion why New York Red Bull fans, New York City fans, New England fans, and granted, credit to New England, New York, and, well, both New York teams, they travel well. DC United travels well, you know, when they're not getting blown out 6-7-0. But it's like, there's no excuse for teams on the I-95 corridor not to travel. And to Union fans' credit, you saw how many fans went up to New York City. You saw how many fans went up to New York Red Bulls the last couple seasons. You know, if you could get more fans like Atlanta United, like Chicago Fire, which, by the way, I was surprised that there was that many Fire fans there for the home opener last week. But the atmosphere was incredible. I don't know if you noticed this, Jose, where the technical area is for the coaches on the Saprissa side, a whole bunch of Saprissa fans back then. I think this was right after Saprissa had scored to take a 3-2 lead. Coaches on the technical staff went up to those fans, putting their hands in the air like, come on, make noise, get louder, get louder, get louder. And it really did. It got so loud. And, you know, those atmospheres are what make the game enjoyable. I think I'm a little bit surprised in myself where on the way home, I wasn't tired. And I think that's because of the energy that the Saprissa fans brought. I mean, 120 minutes, I was like, this is the last thing in the world that I wanted. But those fans are rocking nonstop. And you're right. I mean, the Union have to figure out how can they capitalize on fans from Central America. I mean, even during Leagues Cup, I'm sure we'll see if the Union go far enough. I know they have Cruz Azul. Not sure what their traveling fan situation is going to be like. I mean, if it's like Monterrey or Club America or Chivas, I mean, you're going to probably have a stadium that's packed 50-50, in my opinion. For a club like Cruz Azul, maybe not, but the Union have to figure out a way. How do you dive into that community? And I'm not naive. All those Saprissa fans that were there last night, I know they're not all in the Philadelphia area. But you better bet that maybe 10, 15 of them are. And the Union have to figure out, okay, how can we get them to support the Union? Yes, you can support your club in Saprissa, but you have a club in your own backyard. Why not support the Union? And the Union, you know, I don't get paid enough to figure that out. I'm sure you don't have all the answers how to figure that out, but it is something that the Union need to take advantage of. And like I said, I mean, whether it be 10, 15 fans, 5 fans at that, you know, just doing a better job reaching out to that market.
You're not wrong at all whatsoever. And honestly, to illustrate the point again, to continue to plug my dumb work, but like the video of the penalty kick, right? This is a penalty kick right in front of the Sons of Ben, the River End. And what did you hear? How loud was it when the goal went in, right? Like it was unbelievably loud when the ball hit the back of the net. So I don't know. That was to me pretty telling of what the rest of the night was going to be. And that was pretty early on. But and having gone over to the supporter section, I did ask the question to a few of them and asking, are you local or not? And a majority of them actually were local. And yeah, there were a fair few that, had the passport and were able to afford financially the trip, the pilgrimage, I guess, to Subaru Park to watch their beloved Saprissa. And those that were actually local, I asked, why don't you come to these games more often? And a lot of them said, well, I watch my Saprissa and that's about it, which is fine, right? It's kind of like I only watch my Philadelphia Eagles and why would I care about another team? But the other point that one or two of them brought was, I don't know that I not necessarily fit, but like I don't know that the way I cheer fits. I mean, gosh, the way that they were jumping and bumping and I mean the security guards maybe they had a little bit of a short fuse telling them to not do some stuff, and that's okay. But man, to get that type of energy in the River End where maybe security is a little bit more lax with what I'm describing, can you imagine a pocket of 15 or 20 of them just kind of like KSU? Imagine another KSU or maybe 2 or 3 KSU spread throughout the River End, right? What a difference that could make. And again, that's not to diminish the work that the main SOB group does. I think they do wonderful work, but imagine if there were pockets of those groups like that. And honestly, as a Latino myself, what that would do in terms of diversity and bringing a new crowd, and sure, there's a financial aspect, which I'm sure the union would love to get more and more people coming on a regular basis. But yeah, I agree with you. That there should be a way to bring them to Subaru Park. Now, one last thing I will say, that fan base is used to general admission. So that's another interesting point where, they're used to being able to roaming around, not necessarily having a seat like a movie theater. So just wanted to toss that out there as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I mean, you see it online all the time. Union fans saying, "Oh, the River End should be general admission." And look, I know I said we're going to keep this at 30 minutes max, and I mean, people know, you and I by now, that never happens. We always hit the over. So we could honestly talk about whether or not the River End should be general admission or not, but we'd probably be here for another 45 minutes, and I don't want to take the whole episode talking about, the union need to open this up to general admission and, fans that have been there since day one. And it's not a knock on them, but you hear stories all the time of people saying, "Oh, you're in my seats. And it's like, come on, at the end of the day, like, you're there to support the union. It doesn't matter where you sit. But again, I don't want to go down this hole and argue or speak about this for 45 minutes. And I'm sure the listeners don't want that either. But where to start, honestly? I mean, I guess the lineup, I guess we can start there. Maybe some surprises, maybe not. You see Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes get the starting spot as the two center backs. I don't think there was any surprise in that, especially for us just hearing Jim Curtin say the day before in his press conference that Jack Elliott was training fully with the group, that he's going to play a big role. Yeah, he played a big role, and that got him a red card. We can definitely talk about that here in a little bit, but Marcus Anderson got the start up top over Mikal Ua. We had Jesus Bueno finally get a start for the Union this season. So what are your thoughts from, and Olivier Bizo in for Nate Harriel, but what are your thoughts on the Union's starting lineup? I mean, was there anybody that really impressed you? And we can get to the players that underperformed because I have a couple clips I want to play about that. But anybody in the starting lineup that impressed you?
Yeah, it's no secret. I really do believe that, and the statistics show it too, and display, and obviously numbers don't lie. But Jack McGlynn, man, what a game he had in terms of his performance. Right, he played the full 120, which is an unbelievable feat. Granted, he is one of the younger guys, but he's no Quinn Sullivan in terms of fitness. So just being super transparent and open about that.
After
But,
playing 90 minutes against Chicago, too.
That's also very true. So not only playing 120 minutes, but completing 77% of his passes and creating the most chances on the night, while also tallying 111 touches. So he was involved from beginning to end, and that is to me very telling of where he is within the Union. And just, as maybe I'll put my press hat on for a second here. How well he's doing and probably the attention he's getting. And now with my fan hat on, how sad I am that he's probably going to be departing sooner rather than later. With performances like this against international opponents, I really do believe that eyes are watching. And Jim has said just as much, right? When you have these big international matches that are, for competitions that mean a lot, scouts are there and scouts are watching. So I so happy for Jack, and whenever that time is, may it come. It's going to be an exciting moment for him, and I think as a fan base and press member, you can't help but to smile to have been able to witness it.
Yeah, you're right. You definitely smile for the kid, and Quinn Sullivan's a player that I think stood out for me, and we can get into him in a little bit. But to your point about Jack McGlynn, I mean, there's a guy who's obviously taking advantage of Liam Flock's injury. It sucks for Liam personally, but I think even if Liam Flock was healthy, I still think that left side at Shudler was Jack McGlynn's spot. He earned it towards the end of the season, and he creates a lot. And I mean, you said it right there, just all the touches that he has. And I talked about it last episode where you saw it against Chicago. The Union wanted to get Daniel Gazdag on the ball. They wanted to get Quinn Sullivan on the ball. They wanted to get Jack McGlynn on the ball. Like, it's no secret that the Union know who their playmakers are on this team. You always want to have your playmakers on the ball because they create. And, I mean, just all the three balls, the vision of Jack McGlynn at 19, 20 years old, it's super impressive. And I honestly, believe you can't teach, just the IQ that he has. I'm pretty sure Jim Curtin in the past has praised Jack McGlynn's IQ, how he's such a strong soccer IQ for somebody just so young. And that's something, like I said, I mean, you can't teach. The vision of this guy, he's always seeing a pass 2-3 plays before it happens. And he got the assist last night. 1 assist. Jack McGlynn, the biggest knock on him has been, defensively, he doesn't offer you a lot. I do think that this season he's gotten better defensively than what he was last year. Is he a Liam Flock? No. I was talking to somebody today. He's like, Jack McGlynn needs to be starting. Quinn Sullivan needs to be starting. But what they offer you as the two Shudlers isn't the same of what we've seen from Liam Flock, Alejandro Bedoya, or even Jesus Bueno when he was starting there in the League's Cup. You get so much defense out of those three guys. Yes, you get defense out of Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn, like I just said, getting better defensively. But when you have a defense-minded player first like Liam Flock, who, he's covering back for Kai Wagner when he pushes up. Kai wants to continue to push up on that left side of the field, but so does Jack McGlynn. And so when both players want to push up, now you're exposed there on the left side of the field. And so that's going to force your center backs to push over to cover for them when the ball gets lost. Jose Martinez is going to have to shift over there. There was a couple times last night when both Kai Wagner and Jack McGlynn were both pushed too far up on the left-hand side of the field, and then Jose Martinez was then playing as your left back, and that kills your shape in the midfield when you have both of those players pushing up too high. And the player that this person suggested to me was taking Daniel Gazdag out of the starting at 11, and I'm not sure I see that because Daniel Gazdag, in my opinion, has been one of the Union's better players on the season. A couple assists this season, got a assists on the night against Saprissa. A goal last game against Chicago. I do think the Union have a midfield problem, but it's not because they're playing bad. It's because, if the center backs weren't getting exposed like they've got exposed for the first 3 games, I don't think this is something people are talking about. And again, I have 2 clips that I want to play about this, so we don't have to get into it yet. But there is something lost when you don't have Alejandro Bedoya, Jesus Bueno, Leon Flock out there, and when you're starting McGlynn and Sullivan as the 2 shuttlers. I mean, yes, everybody loves offense, and what they bring to this team offensively is what most players on this team don't offer. And that, like I said earlier, it's the creativity. The only other player I would say that's as creative as them is Daniel Gazdag and Julian Carranza. And so when you're a team that struggles to create off the dribble with the passing, it's hard to say, yeah, we got to take these guys out. Like I mentioned, Quinn Sullivan, just really impressive. The goal, the assist. You actually spoke to him after Chicago, Jose, and you said, is the Olympics the goal? And he 100% looks like a player through 3 games that's 100% focused on trying to make that Olympic squad. And, hopefully that fire stays lit under him. Of course, he's not going to end every game with a goal or an assist, but to see him be as hot as he's been the first 3 games, I mean, that's a really, really promising sign for the Union. I thought Marcus Anderson was actually pretty decent, even though he played 45 minutes. He hustled when Saprissa gave away that ball. I forget who played the ball up, and then it kind of took a deflection off of the Saprissa midfielder. Maybe it was a misclearance there. But regardless, Marcus Anderson was first to attack that ball, had a shot, saved good by the goalie. Daniel Gazdag had a shot blocked, and then Quinn Sullivan was there to finish the chance. But other than, Jack McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan, Marcus Anderson, in the starting lineup, I don't think Julian Carranza, obviously got the goal. Daniel Gazdag, impressive, but I don't think really anybody else was jumping off my radar as super duper impressive. But going back to Quinn Sullivan, he looks like a player that's motivated by the Olympics, right?
I think so. Gosh, to be able to find his way to the Olympics, that would be an incredible feat, don't you think? He has been out of the radar for a little bit now. So for him to work his way into it, that would be quite the achievement considering how quickly they're coming, right? So, man, I don't know who he displaces, but he's certainly making a case for someone being in very, very hot form.
Yeah, Brian Gutierrez, I guess, would be that one player. And he scored a goal and had an assist against the Union. That midfield for the U.S. U23s is definitely jam-packed, I would say. And it's funny, too, when you think about the Olympics. I know, the Union season just started, but July through August, I believe, is when the Olympics are. You can fact check me on that, Jose. And it's going to be interesting who the U.S. chooses to be the over 23-year-old players. Obviously, Copa America could potentially still be going on for the U.S. around the time the Olympics start up. So I'll be curious who the U.S. picks for their players to be over 23 for the Olympics. I'd be shocked if it's anybody, honestly, in the midfield. I'd probably look at maybe some of the strikers that don't make the Copa America team, just because I think the forwards right now for the U23s aren't the most promising position right now for the youth team. But we can talk about that at another time. I think, though, Quinn Sullivan, if he keeps playing like this, he's definitely going to play his way into the Olympic roster. But I think for me, the biggest point on the night was the center backs. And Jim Curtin, gave a really good answer. It was basically his opening statement, got asked a question, and basically gave a 2-minute long answer. So I'll go ahead and play Jim Curtin's thoughts on, the center backs, the issues that Saprissa brought, and hopefully this clip works for all you guys.
look, anytime we can see 3 goals at home, we're never going to be happy with how we defended. I thought about already what I was going to say here, and I think the easiest way to sum it up is I think our group has really, really big heart and big character and big guts. But all of us, staff, players, really small brains in this game, because we made it really hard on ourselves when we didn't have to. Again, it's not lack of effort, but we certainly are conceding too many goals at home, which is uncharacteristic of us. You have to give credit to the opponent. Saprissa came here with real fight, with real commitment, with real intensity. And in the pregame talk, Jonathan and I talked about the 2 things this game needs are intensity, number 1. If we match their intensity, I think our soccer could take over, and it needed discipline. And we had, I would say, neither at the start. We don't do ourselves any favors with getting behind with a penalty kick, then a restart and a free kick. So, 3 ways to concede at home where you're setting yourself up for trouble. But certainly not our best night from this, our whole team really defensively. And some uncharacteristic errors certainly from the center backs. So East gave them big problems. It's only 1 striker up there, and usually we handle that pretty well. And he gave us some big problems. In that instance with Jack, anytime you leave your feet and make a tackle from behind, you're leaving yourself up for a red card. In that instance, it's always best to grab with a hand and grab a handful of jersey to stop a play if you're going to. But once you leave your feet from behind, I still think it might be the right call, unfortunately.
All right, so there's a lot to digest there. But since you were there actually in the room, Jose, I mean, were you surprised by that answer from Jim Curtin? Because typically he gives a minute-long answer, but like I said, that was almost 2 minutes. Like, I don't think he hid his feelings whatsoever from the way that his center backs, how his team performed in general.
No, I wasn't surprised, and I think Kyle, who's here with us as well, would agree. I think he came in A, new haircut, B, different color shirt for the suit that he got from the Commonwealth proper guys, but C, his face, you could tell he was a little rattled or I don't want to say upset. I don't know if he was upset, but you could tell that it wasn't the Jim Curtin that we have seen in the press when he comes in. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, this is a man who, and I know you were the recipient of it, but when he's asked about players who have visually, you can tell that they did not play well, like Mikel Ua, that one game. He's not shy about just, short answers or stern answers like this one, or, being super open and transparent answers like he did in terms of talking about what went wrong and what he had thought about saying, and the line about as a team we have big hearts, whatever, but we also had very little brains. When he said that, I thought to myself, that is an interesting line. Very true and very accurate on the night. So I personally wasn't surprised, but then again, I could be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, that was such an interesting line from Jim Curtin. How, okay, yes, he took responsibility for him and his coaching staff, maybe not setting things up the right way, but he also took responsibility for the players. I don't think he threw the players under the bus per se, but I do wonder with that line, do you think maybe Jim Curtin was regretting leaving his lineup out for as long as he did against Chicago and then coming in with Kai Wagner, Jacob Glesnes, Quinn Sullivan, McGlynn, Gazdag, Carranza? They all played 90 minutes against Chicago. Jim made 4 changes in this game. I mean, maybe there's some regret that he didn't sub people sooner against Chicago, but then you go back and listen to what he said against Chicago. He said, we didn't want to take out Quinn Sullivan. We didn't want to take out Nate Harriel because of just how much success they were having on the right-handed side for us, and then that forced them to play Alejandro Bedoya on the left. But I do wonder a little bit, does Jim think, okay, maybe should we have subbed earlier in that Chicago game? Should we have subbed earlier in this Saprissa game? Alejandro Bedoya was the first sub that came on at halftime for Marcus Anderson. I don't think that it was anything that Marcus Anderson did that was wrong. I mean, Jim even said that, I believe, to the next question that somebody asked. But they needed stability. They needed somebody that was going to calm things down. You actually said that in the press box when people were like, Bedoya went for Anderson. And it's like, yeah, because they're going to put Quinn Sullivan up top. But, I mean, the first half was just so chaotic, just going goal for goal. 2 goals each in the first half, which we're not used to the Union.
First 28 minutes, Todd.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the first half. It was the first 28 minutes that we saw.
Insane.
4 goals.
And Jim Curtin, what did he say? Like, one of the very first things he said after Chicago was, yeah, we need to stop conceding in the first half. And they concede too. They conceded once down in Costa Rica, once against Chicago, and now here's 2 goals against Saprissa at Subaru Park. I mean, Jim Curtin preaches that we're a defense-first team, but the first 3 games doesn't look like it.
Not at all. I mean, this is a far cry. And Mark Kelkenberg, who was he's contributing to our stuff over at AAT Sports, he's putting out an article. He got to talk with Glesnes for maybe a couple of minutes, 3-4 minutes after during the mix zone, I should say, after the game, and just really, asking him, like, how do you prepare? How do you fix this stuff, especially with the tight turnaround and the differences that you have to tackle in terms of a domestic competition versus an international competition, meaning, the type of opponent that you face, and be on the lookout for that. But just really weird and unlike Union defensive performances, right? A far cry from that 2021 team that had an incredible defensive record, right? Was that the year that Glesnes and Elliott were, or who was it that was defensive MVP? Was it Glesnes?
Yeah, Glesnes.
Yeah, so it's a far cry. And I don't know anything. I'm not saying that a source told me or anything like this, but I'm starting to think more and more that maybe Glesnes is not fully healed yet from that injury. It's just so suspicious that these performances are happening as early as they are in the season, considering he was shut down early last year. So or maybe he's just getting them out of his system now. So when November comes around, we don't have to talk about him then, because obviously you don't want to. That's when it's the business end of the season. So I sure hope that they sort it out, especially with the mess that the Union put themselves in terms of both Damian Lowe and Elliott being out for the first game against Pachuca.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody about this, and he's like, it's crazy because Glesnes is only 29 and Jack Elliott's 28, I believe. And what I find interesting, and I was talking to Kyle about this on the phone, was both center backs essentially played 4,000 minutes. Jacob Glesnes just a little bit under 4,000, but that's a lot of minutes to be played when both of these guys hardly got substituted out last season. And you look the way that the Union play, they play a high press, high line system. And I think you look at Liverpool, they're a high press team, and they've had to change up that squad because they essentially wore out the players that they had. And maybe you're starting to see that with Jacob Glesnes, with Jack Elliott, just because you're asking so much out of your center backs. And you go back to the goal that Brian Gutierrez scored against Chicago, where you look at Jacob Glesnes, he's sitting too deep. And it's like, you got to push the ball. You got to push. And I think there's a reason why Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes are sitting deep. It's because they don't have the pace like that. That's no surprise. And Kyle asked the question. He said, should Damian Lowe be one of those players that's just a solidified starter, and then you rotate between Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott just so you have a pacey center back out there? And that was part of the reason a couple years ago that the Union went out to get Stuart Finley, is because, one, he had pace, and then two, he's a left-footed center back. And I don't want this to get lost on anybody, but the Union don't currently have a left-footed center back. It's everybody that plays that left-footed side is right-footed, whether it be Nate Harriel filling in as a center back who I guess is probably going to fill in against Pachuca with Jacob Glesnes because Jack Elliott suspended for the first game because of that red card. You have Damian Lowe suspended because he has 2 yellow cards. So that Pachuca game is going to be very interesting. And we have a question about that we can get to later on, Jose. But I think Kyle brings up a good point. It's like maybe you do rotate between Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes, and Damian Lowe's the solidified starter because of the pace. And, I don't think any of the center backs on the Union's roster are perfect. And I know Jim Curtin praises the center backs every press conference and says, yeah, we have 3 of the best center backs in MLS, but I haven't been convinced by Jack Elliott in the last year. I don't think he's looked the same since 2022. All 3 center backs get turned way too easy. And when you look at the attackers in this league, it's going to continue to be more of the same. They're going to continue to make the Union center backs look foolish. So I don't know if it's because they've played too many games last season. We only basically had a month of rest, and these guys are still tired. I don't know if it's because the Union play that high press, high line system, and it's just wearing down some of these players. But it's a huge issue. But going back to Kyle's question, do you think that the Union should rotate between Glesnes and Elliott and then keep Damian Lowe as a starter?
I don't know. 4 games in. Listen, I am a firm believer after rewatching the game in preparation for chatting with George earlier today. I'm convinced that the only reason the Union won was because of the substitution that Jim made in terms of bringing in Damian Lowe, and not because he's a defender or any of the tactical stuff, but rather of what he brings that's not really captured within the field in a way, and in terms of the way he pumped up that crowd, the way that he was trying to show leadership to the team and trying to help them out and kind of getting gear. So if anything, I would say that the partnership between Glesnes and Lowe has been really good in a way, despite the goals that are being allowed, that I wonder if Elliott has sort of been replaced for the time being, because obviously I do believe it was a red card, but I could see how you would feel otherwise.
Yeah, I think it was a red too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Jim said it best in the press conference. In that situation, when you go to ground and go to slide, you're just making it so easy for the referee to make a decision. Why not grab a shirt? Why not pull, tug, right? Make him think, meaning the referee, a little bit more about the decision that he has to make. Long-winded answer, but I do think that Damian maybe is a starter for the next few games, but I would think that this coming game on Saturday, that's where maybe it's an Elliott and Lowe pairing.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much told you that after the game. He said, you guys know who's going to fill in the 2 guys that can't play against Pachuca. So we already know 2 of the starters. I'd imagine, depending on how Andre Blake is, Oliver Semler potentially gets a start once again in goal. And I do feel bad for him that the Union conceded 3 goals, and I don't think any of those goals were his fault. You had the penalty that Glesnes gave up. You had the handball that Glesnes gave up. I mean, it was not the best showing for Jacob Glesnes last night after scoring the own goal down in Saprissa. This is a series that Jacob's going to want to forget. This is just one of them, as a player, you just got to, survive in advance, like Jim Curtin kept saying. And we've heard that saying how many times over the years. Jacob just needs to forget about this whole Saprissa game and just focus on the next matchup, and I have no reason to believe that he won't. It was just a weird game from him, and just the set piece mismarking. It's unfortunate, nothing you can do there if you're Oliver. Just people losing their markers, and it's a beautiful free kick. I don't even think Andre Blake's saving that. I mean, the goals that the Union conceded aren't what you're used to, and it's a credit to Saprissa for taking advantage of the Union's mistakes. One thing that I noticed was their striker, and Jim Curtin said it there in the clip too. Like they had one striker one striker causing this much, Javon East causing this much issues for Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott with his hold up play. And I was like, there's no reason why Jacob and Jack should both be getting out muscled by this striker. There's just no way. And he's getting away from them with pace. And even in the second half, Kendall Watson and extra time had a chance, and Oliver Semler comes up with a save. There's no reason why Kendall Watson, who I feel like is 40 years old, I know he's not, should be outpacing Jacob Glesnes, whether he's still dealing with that injury or not from last season. I mean, that was that was pretty disappointing, seeing a 36-year-old Kendall Watson, a center back, outrunning Jacob Glesnes. Yeah, that was not a good look.
No, not at all. But listen, maybe we can start sort of shifting along here and thinking about on the Saprissa side. I can say this because the Union are advancing, but I am just so impressed. Granted, the Union sort of shot themselves in the foot in a few ways. So impressed with what Saprissa put together for the game. I mean, it was an impossible task. And having talked to Mark leading into the game, I really did think that this was going to be a Union field day, right? Because Saprissa had to go for it. So I expected the Mikel Uas of the world to have his, Route 1 type of running, north-south, not a whole lot of east-west, and just getting those opportunities, maybe like a Chris Donovan just pressuring and then releasing Mikel Ua on a breakaway or something like that, because Saprissa had to push. I mean, they had no other choice. But Saprissa did anything but that. They from minute 1 to minute 120 believed that they could have done it, and they almost did, especially with how crazy that bouncing around the post was at the end. I hate to say it was sort of a coin flip, and obviously the Union came on top, but I just want to say so happy for them and proud. Certainly a soft spot in my heart for that team now. What a battle.
Yeah, I mean, they, to their credit too, I mean, even being down 3-1 down in Costa Rica, where as soon as they get that own goal by Jacob Glesnes, their fans are going crazy in that stadium, acting like they had just won the league again or something like that. And their fans never stopped believing in this team. And I do ultimately believe that, they're the reason why this Saprissa team was able to push on and get this game won in regular time for Saprissa 3-2. But obviously that led the two teams being tied on aggregate 5-5. And then the Union were able to get the equalizer, the go-ahead goal on aggregate by Mikel Ua, who, by the way, I mean, this is what the Union need from their highest paid player, and to score goals. And to be down a man because of the Jack Elliott red card, it's a big moment there for Mikel Ua, and you hope that it continues. You hope that he stays healthy. And Jim Curtin challenged him to be one of the best players, to be a leader for this squad. And 2 goals in 2 straight games, it's something good to build on. But yeah, like you said, I mean, just 14th minute penalty kick, goal right after Quinn Sullivan's, the free kick, the craziness of the ball hitting off the post and everything in the 119th minute, I believe it was. Like, how close were we to seeing this game go into penalty kicks? And then when it's penalties, it's a crapshoot. Anything can happen. And you do feel for them where, okay, they probably shouldn't have had 3 goals at Subaru Park, because when you look, when's the last time that the Union conceded 3 goals at Subaru Park? Well, it wasn't that long ago. It happened last year in League's Cup against Inter Miami, 4-1 loss for the Union. But it's, I don't know if it's a huge concern yet for the Union that they keep conceding, that they conceded 3 goals at Subaru Park. I think this is just, a team that was fully motivated, maybe a team that was playing for the manager. I know you'd raised the question, maybe not in the press conference, Jose, but could the manager potentially get sacked if they had a disappointing showing in Subaru Park last night? And I think the manager got it spot on for Saprissa. I think the players are motivated to play for him, and you feel bad for them. Just they work so hard, and you brought this up with Eddie Mendez, CRT football. When you had him on the first time, looking over the transfer market values, I think Saprissa is only valued at $8 million compared to a $56 million Union squad. It's insane when you look at the values of these two clubs in transfer market. And watching that game last night, you couldn't tell that.
No, you couldn't, not one bit. And again, with Eddie, who please go follow him, CRC football. I can't remember what it is, but
yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, go and follow him. And he's certainly been featured on our stuff in the past and whatnot. But, you don't play on paper, you play on the grass. So, well, I guess paper is made out of whatever. But nonetheless, like, what a way to destroy that argument. And yes, I did bring up that point with Eddie on the second go around of our conversation. Would the manager's job be in trouble or in danger should they lose? And Eddie said yes, but it would have to be an absolute embarrassment, like a 5-0 or maybe something bigger. And obviously, I think the game was everything but an embarrassment. It was just an unbelievable match by them and something that they can really use to tackle the rest of their Clausura season.
So obviously, that's the end of the episode. So if you guys want to follow Jose on Twitter, I feel like all of you guys already are, but if you're not, it's Jose R. Nunez 91 on Twitter. If you guys want to subscribe to Jose's Substack because you guys don't have a Twitter, maybe you guys aren't aware of what he posts, I feel like every single day, you can find his Substack at nunezj.substack.com. And he has a fantastic interview out now. I really wanted him to plug this in the episode. But it's the commentator from the Philadelphia Union Saprissa game on Tuesday night, George Metellus, joins Jose. Fantastic episode. And so he posted that on his Twitter account, and he also posted that on his Substack if you guys want to listen to the audio only. So I'll leave all the links to Jose's Substack, to his Twitter, to AAT Sports, and across the pitch in the show description so you guys can follow Jose wherever you guys want to follow him at. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you guys get your podcast, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/FreeKickPod, and then check out the Substack for the podcast, thefreekick.substack.com. And I think we may have one, maybe two articles out before the Sporting Kansas City game this Saturday, 8:30 kickoff on MLS Season Pass. And the Philadelphia Union take on Pachuca in the round of 16 this upcoming Tuesday, March 5th at 7 p.m. Round of 16, first game, first leg. Be loud, be proud. I know once we do the Sporting Kansas City review episode, I'll go ahead and remind you guys of the Pachuca game and all that jazz. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.